The first thing is, what is this liminal word? Liminal in Cynefin refers to in between, well, liminal everywhere refers to an in between or a threshold state, that space that's in between two other spaces. And particularly a sense of moving from one thing to another in a state of tension that you get in transitions, where things are not A or B, and in fact, they're both A and B at the same time, maybe, and the world makes you feel like we wanted to make it either A or B, but we're stuck in the middle. So in Cynefin, those spaces are represented by these green swooshes that run through the framework. And what that is particularly showing is where we're opening up the thresholds between domains. So what I want you to notice is where there is not a green line. So between complicated and clear, there is no phase shift. This is actually, but arguably you could gray out this boundary, because the move from complicated to clear is often about how many different moving parts there are and how technical they are. There's not, I know many of you found it challenging on the blue line to agree on exactly where we draw that line literally. What is liminal is the space between complex and complicated, because quite often we're working in the space between them, or things are moving through that space between them. That's a particularly catalytic and important time to be paying attention. The same applies to the space here that we see quite a broad space defined in chaotic and complex. What you will notice, a couple of little quirks in how this is drawn. The space in chaotic is closed, right? The green can't seep out. And that's because you always want to constrain that, because chaos is not our friend. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Where here, it's a much more open boundary. So things can go to all sorts of interesting places from that liminal space between complex and complicated. So liminality is also about avoiding premature convergence. Often in a process, when it feels like we're moving from complex, throwing ideas around, to some kind of convergence, we have an instinct to jump on it and push it over the line. But in fact, we're saying this is a space where we should slow down. Making that transition too early or prematurely is in fact quite risky. And we're going to play out some scenarios and examples of